Hello, my name is Jensen Hainline. This is my This I Believe speech. I'm going to be doing my topic over staying motivated by counting small wins. Firstly, I'm going to begin with a quick introduction to myself and how exercise has impacted me and ultimately led me to my selection of this topic. I began working out freshman year of high school. I was trying to, get bigger. Ultimately, I was growing up skinny and get into a consistent exercise routine and a diet, though quickly did I learn that this process is very grueling. It takes time, as well as it can be very, very discouraging. So something that I learned to do throughout this process was by counting my small wins rather than my big ones. I would have a large goal, I would be pushing towards that goal, but I would ultimately fall back into an old routine rather than the new one I'm trying to implement and bettering myself. So I would tell myself, instead of staying consistent for a week and exercise, let's try to exercise 3 times a week. And I would count that as a small win rather than a large one. Ultimately, counting the small wins is going to be a lot easier in your life because they're going to tally up over time, and it's going to build that routine that's going to ultimately lead you to the larger goal. So I want to have a quick overview of my 3 points I'm going to be talking about. My first point is how goals require patience. They take time. You can't rush this process. Next is how through this patience will come success. And then lastly, how small wins are needed to stay focused on our end goal. And it's going to make that process a lot easier in reaching our larger goals. I believe in staying motivated by small wins in life. For my first point, I'm going to talk about how large goals take time and you cannot rush this process. A great analogy I have for this is gardening. When you see someone gardening, you're always confused of their product that they're building right now. It's going to take time and all this, yada, yada, yada. Ultimately, though, it's going to take time and patience, and it's going to require maintenance to grow this plant. So something that we need to remember is that the plants are going to grow on their own accord. You can't rush this process. It takes time, seasons, and ultimately it's going to be on their own time to grow. So I think we can really reflect on this and use this in our own life. Sometimes you may look at someone, they seem to be moving a lot faster in life, but ultimately you need to recognize that you're on your own path, you're growing at your own rate, and something to make this process a little bit easier is by counting these small victories, such as a little root growing. For my next point, I want to talk about is how patience is key. Just how I previously talked about the plant growing, it takes patience. It's time. You can't be rushed. I have a quote from David Goggins. I'd like to talk about this. The only way to achieve greatness in life is to have patience, consistency, and discipline. This mindset is ultimately what carried David Goggins from being a 300-pound, overweight, struggling male to being a Navy SEAL, ultramarathon runner, and best-selling author. I think this is great to really reflect on this quote, as we can recognize that our goals are going to require patience, time, discipline, and consistency. It can't be rushed, and we got to just keep that grit in our mind and remind ourselves of the ultimate end goal. I like to carry this quote with me as I struggle with college, working out, self-improvement, or something even at a job. I have to remind myself that I'm ultimately wanting this larger goal, but I need to stay humble to the moment I'm in, as well as focusing on what I'm achieving and just enjoying the process rather than finding it grueling. For my next point, I'm going to talk about how these big goals can be really discouraging, though something I do, as I previously talked about when I first began working out, and I still do now, is focusing on these smaller goals that are going to help us take steps towards our end goal. For me, it was my exercise routine. The large goal was to become more confident and start a workout routine and continue sticking with it. Ultimately, what I did was I just broke it down into smaller, more digestible things that I could handle, as well as help me ultimately achieve the end goal. So that's why I believe it's in staying motivated by small wins in life. A quick review is goals require patience. They take time. Through patience will come this success. And then lastly, we need to remember, in order to reach this end goal, focus on the small wins rather than the big ones. And before you know it, you'll be at the finish line. And if I could leave you with one closing thought, it is we all have goals, big or small, whether those goals are for in a week or for our retirement, we need to stay humble and grounded to the moment we're living in and keep stepping forward by counting the small wins rather than the big ones. And before you know it, you'll be at the finish line pushing towards your next goal. Thank you.